it's really not a good scenario when I call it the Wild West, right? When you have a sales department and it's just kind of like anarchy and everyone's doing what they want,
Yeah.
very difficult for the company to do any strategic planning around that. And revenue isn't predictable then. We have to be cautious about just handing off our brand and messaging.
Yeah, that's
And
it.
we still have to own that, right? It's our baby. So
Yes.
we have to make sure we don't just let an agency like, okay, run with it, do whatever you want. We have to be very much involved in that until they truly understand what our brand messaging is.
A lot of founders have that problem. They start a business and they're very good at it, and then they want to scale. They'll need new sales reps, but they don't trust those sales reps, and
Mhm.
then they
Mhm.
just putting them as a face, but it's the founder itself who's always closing the deals. Welcome everyone to another episode of Your Lab Central. Today I'm joined with Ruth. Ruth, would you like to tell our audience why they should be excited about the conversation today?
Yes, for sure. Thanks for having me. Well, two things. I have been in business as an entrepreneur, solopreneur for over 20 years now. So, for any of your listeners who are also in business or they're coaches and consultants, they're probably going to be able to relate to a lot of what we talk about.
Yeah.
And it's going to be an authentic conversation because I'm happy to share the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
And for any of your listeners, they've probably, like me, had a lot of lows
Mhm.
in their business. We all
Yeah.
do, but also a lot of highs. So I
Yeah.
think it'll be an authentic conversation, and I'll deliver as much practical content as I can.
So, since we're not talking about anything specific here, would you like to tell us how it's been in your past 20 years? What you've been doing, what you've been excited about?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. So I actually started on my own in business. I was actually managing a business center, and
Mhm.
I was doing advisory services for small business owners and startups, and really enjoyed the work. I loved working with the small business owners, but then I wasn't getting paid very much, and I felt like I was doing a really good job. I was growing
Yeah.
the user base. And I felt like, here I am advising entrepreneurs themselves, but really I wanted to have my own business. So
Yeah.
I left that role and haven't looked back. I've been an entrepreneur ever since, and it's been a really interesting journey. And it's evolved over the years. I started actually a career counseling business that I was really enjoying, but then my business clients kind of kept pulling me into other aspects of their business. So I
Right.
ended up doing more and more sales work, and that's where I focus my work now is on helping build sales systems for companies.
All right. Now, if I ask you a very generic question, if there is a particular business, say, I mean, any kind of business, what's the first step that you tell them to take when they're trying to build a sales system?
Well, the very first thing is to take a look at where they're at. So if someone's reaching out to me and they're interested in my services, but we're not really sure if it's a fit, the
Hmm.
very first thing we'll do is have a conversation about where they're at. And
Okay.
I find, typically business owners, they know in their sales area, they know where they're struggling. They might not always know why, but even that they have a sense of. The question is, how do they fix those gaps? So
Mhm.
we always start with either just an informal or more formal audit of the current situation.
Mhm.
That allows us to know where we have to go from there to fix those gaps.
Now, that's a very fair thing that you've mentioned, right? Because when you're doing a business, you need to know where the gaps are, because only then you can actually fill in those gaps, create some improvement, and go on
Yeah.
with business otherwise. Now, in the multiple businesses that you've worked with, okay, what's every one very common problem that you've seen, probably, if there's something that you want to highlight?
hmm I would say it's getting the giving the sales reps because
Hmm.
I do a lot. So whatever I do, it's really to build structure for the
Yeah.
sales reps in the company. So the challenge is I think that a lot of small businesses have
Hmm.
is getting one structure that all of their sales reps can adopt and work under. And I do find that sales reps are generally very open to
Hmm.
working within a structure and then, of course, having some autonomy, but it's
Yeah.
getting them doing the same prospecting process and the same follow-up
Yeah.
process and doing their sales meetings the same way so the company's well represented. So I would say the common
Mm.
challenge, and it for your listeners who either have sales reps or they're planning on getting sales reps, it's something for them to start thinking about now.
Hmm.
What do they have in terms of a structure that their sales reps can work within? Because it's really not a good scenario when it's, I call it the Wild West, right? When you have a sales department and it's just kind of like anarchy and everyone's doing what they want,
Yeah.
very difficult for the company to do any strategic planning around that. And revenue isn't predictable then.
Hmm. No, I mean, salespeople are generally very independent in their way of thought and the way they want to work, right? Now, and they just want to get a person and into the process and have close this deal. But then they have this thing of independence and creativity and just them saying that every client is unique. I cannot follow this whole process with them. How do you put that discipline into the whole system?
hmm yeah, it's a very good point because that is it's this kind of, it's not a paradox, but it's a good sales rep has that level of independence and they want some autonomy. But I think the ideal scenario is where you give them the structure that they work within, but
Mm.
also giving them some freedom within that structure, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of, so how they work within that, like it's about giving them the tools. So, for
Yeah.
example, the CRM, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll just give a really basic example. Within the CRM, every company should have email templates built out that the
Yeah.
sales reps are using. But within the email, they should be required to do customization for
Mm.
that unique client, right? You're
Right.
absolutely right. Each company is different,
Hmm.
but the same sales process can be applied with
Yeah.
customization throughout the steps.
Now, if you talk about marketing, I don't know how you've been using it. I just want to move the direction towards a little to social media marketing.
Yep.
How have you seen it grow? I mean, you've been there for 2 decades now, and you must have seen a lot of phases and of people using it first on Facebook, then there's LinkedIn, there's the advanced LinkedIn Sales Navigator thing that's there. Now, how are people leveraging this? Has it grown? Are people getting better? Or, I mean, the
Mhm.
people on the in the field, basically.
hmm I think where it's grown really nicely for business owners is that there's so many marketing agencies now that
Yeah.
can take that off of your plate. And actually, just before coming on this
Hmm.
podcast, I was looking at a company that had emailed me about their marketing agency services
Okay.
because, like many entrepreneurs, I have great plans to stick
Mhm.
to a social posting calendar. But
Yeah.
I've never stuck to it. And it's because we just have so many demands, right? And I didn't go into business to be a social media agency, right? I
Right.
have other priorities. So I would say that the great advantage for small business owners and solopreneurs
Hmm.
is that you should do some of it. Like I really like to do a lot of my own posting on LinkedIn because
Hmm.
that's where my client base is.
Yeah.
But I would say hand it off to a marketing agency that works within your budget.
Okay.
There's a lot of cost-friendly ones nowadays. So if you're really, if it makes sense for you to be on Instagram, I'm not actually on Instagram, but through Facebook, I get on there.
Yeah.
But wherever your audience is,
Hmm.
if you're not posting enough, if you're not, it's not just even about posting. If you're not engaging enough, if you're not,
Yeah.
whatever, if you want to run ads, whatever, then find a really good agency,
Hmm.
whether it's through Fiverr or whatever, build that long-term relationship and
Okay.
let them, do the creative work of representing your
Right.
brand.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do, I think it's essential that we are on a social media platform.
Hmm.
It's just a question of which one makes sense for our business model.
Now, I'll ask this to you personally. How have you felt that using LinkedIn, okay, has helped? I mean, obviously, you're getting clients out of LinkedIn, so that's a different thing altogether. But what is actually the thing that clicks for, which is creating engagement for you? How are you doing that?
Yes, I'll be honest, I don't think I've really cracked that nut yet. And I was,
That's why I want to talk to you
yeah,
about it. I mean, I want to know what people who are just struggling and trying to figure things out. So that's.
yeah. What I have So because my clientele are B2B for the most part,
Mhm.
it does make sense for me to be on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I do find that so LinkedIn's become a little bit more political of late, I have found. It
Okay.
seems to be going back more to the business focus. But in terms of what I find works on LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
is because it's such a professional, kind of serious crowd.
Yeah.
It really has to be more in information focused.
Okay.
I just did a post yesterday and it was promoting one of my courses, but I really was trying to do more educational messaging with it. And I think that's really for certainly for me and my because I focus on C-suite executives,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they're doing very serious work, they're very
Yeah.
busy. So I can't really get like it's not that I can't get their attention with humor and fluff, but they're on there for more for solutions,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I think it's about using the time and the space to really let them give them some value first.
So that's how social media is, right? I mean, on LinkedIn, people are looking for knowledge, for information, and then at the end of it, if you have a deal, if you have an offer, you can give it to them, and then if they're interested, they'll get in touch with you, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Facebook is a
Hmm.
different ball game altogether. Uh,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
have you tried using that to get clients on Facebook?
Um, so
It's,
yes,
it's just a random question, not specifically.
yeah. Oh, you mean have I like for my business, have I been on Facebook?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, but not with as much success as on LinkedIn. And
yeah,
I actually have had an agency that, they've been doing some ads and it just hasn't been pulling. So
yeah,
I'm very, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of your listeners can relate to this if they're in a
yeah,
similar space to me.
yeah.
That you have to be really careful with Facebook advertising
Mhm.
because it can be a real waste of money
Yeah,
if it's and you've likely seen this yourself, like there's so many agencies on Facebook
that's true. That's true. Yes.
selling the next greatest thing.
Yeah.
And I my you know my the costly unfortunate realization for me is that they most of them overpromise and underdeliver. And I know that sounds
Yeah.
very cynical. It's a big generalization,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of your
Mm.
listeners are kind of nodding, going, "Yep, yep, been
Yeah.
there."
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, that's also one that I haven't quite landed on the
Mhm.
agency yet
Yeah.
that can truly deliver.
Right.
So I tend to always go back to LinkedIn for my business.
There's a lot of hits and misses when it comes to social media. Even if you're making
Yeah,
a simple post or if you're trying an agency making an ad, I've tried that personally. I've had both ups and downs. So
yeah,
we've talked a lot of about ups. Now let's talk about the downs. That since you mentioned, right?
yeah.
What's some bad patches that you had your inspiring moments or some aha moment that came out from a bad patch, and then you want to share that?
Hmm. So one of the challenges that I've had is, and it's that, so for example, going on Facebook with my business, like I have Facebook pages for my businesses. So
Mhm.
I don't want to ignore Facebook completely,
Yeah.
but having spent a lot of money and wasted a lot of money and
Yeah.
not gotten the results,
Yeah.
what it's, so there's two things. I find a lot of marketing agencies
Hmm.
where they need to improve. The ones that are promoting themselves on Facebook,
Yeah.
they don't take enough time to really understand a company's brand to
Right.
then represent it well, right? So for someone like me, where I'm selling to C-suite executives in multi-million dollar businesses, there's a very particular way I want to represent my brand to
That's right.
them. So that doesn't always hasn't always worked out when I've
Mhm.
retained an agency for Facebook. But the good thing about that, the silver lining, because there's always a silver lining,
Yeah.
it's that it has really forced me to be more protective of my brand and
Okay.
to really devote that time to say, well, what is my brand and how do I
Okay.
want to be positioned and communicate
Mhm.
that? So I think that's something for your listeners to think about as well, right?
Mhm.
We have to be cautious about just handing off our brand and messaging.
Yeah,
And
that's it.
we still have to own that, right? It's our baby. So
Yes.
we have to make sure we don't just let an agency like, okay, run with it, do whatever you want. We have to be very much involved in that until they truly understand what our brand messaging is.
Yeah, I mean, I actually relate to that because I had this agency come in for a apparel brand that we were trying to run, and then they just started bombarding our social media page with one post every day, and it was basically just one product of generic background, and then bombarding it, and even the ads that they were running were not working out because we saw it was not what we were, and then
Yeah.
even though we tried to align them, it did not happen, and then we had to pull them back and pull it out and crash the whole thing. At one point, we had to pull down all these posts because they were actually destroying the whole aesthetics of our social media page itself. So that was the kind of
Ex-
thing.
Yeah, you've just described exactly what I've been through as well. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that there are many of your listeners out there who have been through the same
Mm.
thing. So it's something that I'm sure you can appreciate, like I did. I
Yeah.
having to pull down posts that
Yeah.
you've spent time and money on.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating, right?
That's right.
Uh, yeah, so if it can be avoided, because there's all that time wasted, and
Yeah.
now you've got all that empty space. So
Mhm.
yeah, the more you can get a handle on communicating with the marketing agency up front. This is my brand. This is the
Yeah.
messaging, the look, the like all of that. And I would say probably the solution is don't let them just start having carte blanche access to everything and control and posting like
Yeah.
crazy. You might even want to approve. I'm not saying you in particular, but like
Yeah.
all of us, we should say,
Yes.
okay, I need for the first 30 days, I approve every post.
Hmm.
And then they'll get a sense of what works and what
Yeah.
doesn't. Yeah.
Yes. Now I was just reading your bio. So basically, you do a lot of public speaking. So I just wanted to understand. You mentioned that you've got a lot of people getting engaged. I mean, engaging with your speech and then getting registrations. Could you just tell me more about it?
Yes. Oh, you mean my rap three, like how
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so that's something that and thank you for asking me about that because I do like to talk about I love doing business speaking and doing
Okay.
workshops.
Uh-huh.
I love engaging with people. It's a lot of fun. So that's where I developed that out of previous talks I've done where it's more for event planners to let
Okay.
them know that I really focus on
Mhm.
um, delivering topics that will really get the interest of their audience.
Okay.
So increase their registrations
Hmm.
and then get their audiences really wanting to attend, right?
Yeah.
So and then getting those positive reviews. So that's
Right.
my commitment to more to an event planner. And what I have found really the key to that is it all starts with what you're offering to deliver for content. So it's
Okay.
understanding what the needs are of your audience. And
Okay.
so I'll make sure to come up with, two or three different topic ideas or titles, and then I'll see what the event planner thinks will resonate. The
Hmm.
other thing I do actually is I'll do a needs assessment of their audience
Okay.
and let them give me some initial feedback. So all of that helps to boost registration numbers.
Yeah.
And for me, it's my goal that I want to make sure that the event planner is getting a lot of really positive feedback at the end from there. Because the more, like, so do you do public speaking as well? Are you a business speaker or any type of a public
No,
speaker?
not yet. I have organized TEDx events in the past, but
Oh, cool.
I'm not exactly a business speaker myself. I'm not there yet. I don't have that expertise that people will be calling me somewhere.
Well, I'm sure you actually do. You're because you're a podcast host, but I would say if you aspire to that, then the key thing is really, I always focus on,
Hmm.
yes, I'm presenting the content, but at the end of the day, it's about making sure that the audience comes away being so happy that they took the time away from their schedule to get the
Yeah.
content, and
Yes.
that the event planner is so happy with me that he or she would like to have me back
Right.
and that they've already got their audience saying, I'm coming back to your next event because this one was so good. So that's kind of like it's really value driven.
Yeah. I mean, that's right. I mean, we have that the audience that is coming in to get engaged. We have to understand what they want to hear. Only then we can deliver exactly what they want. And then the
Yeah.
solutions that we'll be giving out, that kind of thing. Uh,
Yep.
so about your customers, you've got C-suite people working with you. What kind of impact have you created in the past year, or if you want to share something of that sort?
For my clients.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about so the key thing that I do for
Hmm.
my clients, Typically what will happen is like it'll be a C-suite executive like a president, business owner who will engage my services, and
Yeah.
then I'll primarily end up working with their sales reps. So I'm building out
Okay.
the process, testing them, and then coaching. But I would say that the key thing that I can deliver for them is not just putting in a scalable, repeatable system, right? Giving them that
Okay.
structure. It frees them up to focus on their core skills and their
Okay.
core business. So what often happens with the clients that I serve, because there's more small business owners, they've done a lot of the sales themselves.
Right.
And they've been in business for a while and they're still maybe doing too much of the sales they're just wearing too many hats. So what I can
Yeah.
do is relieve them of that constant pressure and put structure and organization. And I think I was listening to one of your podcasts. I think her name was Edie.
Hmm.
You two got
Yeah.
into a really good conversation about the importance of process and structure,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's so essential to any size business,
Yeah.
whether it's a solopreneur or
Hmm.
you have you have to have structure and systems
Yeah.
because otherwise you're just wasting so much time, right? You're just not as productive. So that's really what I do, what I can. So any client who engages my services, I'm really focused on making their business more efficient on the sales side and freeing up their time so that they can focus on their core areas of the
Hmm.
business.
I mean, that's a real thing. A lot of founders have that problem. They start a business and they're very good at it, and then they want to scale. They'll need new sales reps, but they don't trust those sales reps, and
Mhm.
then they
Mhm.
just putting them as a face, but it's the founder itself who's always closing the deal. So it's at the
Mhm.
end of the process itself, it's always the founder that's involved, and they actually don't scale because they're still so involved, right? And
That's a yeah, very good point. Yeah. And the other thing is that um so because of that, it necessitates like there's going to be a cultural shift, right? Because
yeah.
in that scenario, which is very much the case
Hmm.
in many businesses,
Yeah.
what happens is that the sales reps become dependent on the owner or
Yeah.
owners to do that heavy lifting of closing the sale. So they're not learning those sales closing
Mm.
skills that are so essential. And what I see happening too often is that the sales reps are not they're like it's almost that I'm not saying that there has to be hierarchy,
Hmm.
but there's not maybe enough hierarchy. So the sales reps
Yeah.
are just kind of like passing stuff off to the owners that
Yeah.
they should be responsible and accountable for,
That's
right?
true.
So it's not setting up a really good culture for growth, I
Mm.
would say. So there has to be communication around that too, to let these sales reps know you're going to be getting increasing responsibility and accountability, and the owners are going to be more hands off on the sales side.
Yeah.
The owners have to get to a point where they're monitoring and
Yeah.
at the strategy level,
Yeah.
and all the day-to-day stuff is happening on the ground by the sales reps.
Now this is a kind of generic question, but I just want to understand when it comes to a company, okay, which is scaling, and they have a founder who's been the face of the business throughout the whole period, and now they have a lot of sales reps. When it comes to, say, social media, very specifically, okay,
Mhm.
would you say that the sales reps now become the face of the organization and try to create engaging posts for the organization and then try to get leads? Or is it still the founders' posts which will be creating the leads and then the sales reps can take follow-ups?
Mhm.
What would be the
I'd say
technique
the
for?
latter. Yeah, the latter. Because what I've seen is where if you let the sales reps do that individually,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to lose control of your brand and your
Right.
messaging. And
Mhm.
I think if you're at the point of having, even one sales rep, you
Mhm.
should absolutely have a marketing person or an outsourced marketing agency. Someone needs to be handling your social media
Okay.
for lead gen, and
Mhm.
then yeah. So the only caveat to that, or exception, I would say, would be when it comes to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
if you're okay with your sales reps posting on LinkedIn, I
Okay.
think that's okay as long as they're not creating graphics and stuff. I don't think
Uh,
that's something sales reps really should be doing.
okay.
Um, and it's not good use of their time either,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. That's right.
A company's better off spending money on a marketing agency to do
Yes.
that.
Yes. Um, okay. Before we close, anything special you want to share about your journey?
Yeah, don't give up. It's it's if any of your listeners are, if they're finding that business is like a roller coaster and they've got
Yeah.
down days and up days, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can relate to that too.
Yes.
It just find ways when if you're going through a bit of a downtime in your business. I've been there. Uh, just know that things are going to pick up, and the
Yes.
key thing, the solution is keep taking action, keep taking productive action
Hmm.
that is focused on whatever your goals are. So if you don't have specific goals for your business, set those goals, because then you're going to
Yeah.
know what actions to take. And the other thing is I would say have ways of coping with those days, right?
Hmm.
I think it's very easy for business owners and consultants and coaches, if we're having a tough time,
Yeah.
we tend to just stay isolated in our offices, and I'm
Yes.
just going to keep hammering away on my laptop and work through this.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really good, not even sometimes. It's often the solution or the prescription is step away and go for a walk.
All right. Yes.
Get
All right.
into nature,
Yeah.
grab coffee with a friend.
Mm.
The solution isn't always just to keep sitting in front of our laptop and trying to, work through it.
Yeah.
I think stepping away frees up our brain.
Hmm.
Like I'm a big walker. I love to walk, and I've gotten my best solutions when I'm out walking. You know,
Yes.
because
Yes.
your
Yes.
your
I can
your
relate
mind
to
is
that. Yeah.
freed. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I would say just, keep going, but find ways to ease your way through the down times, so
Mhm.
that and remain positive and hopeful that you're going to hit those goals.
Thank you so much. I mean, you've given me a lot of insights. You've given my audience a lot of insights. Uh, yeah, where can my audience get in touch with you? Any website or something that you want to share?
Yeah, my website, revsquared.com, is a great place they can also get, I've got some free resources there. I've also got some free resources on advanced sales training. So all really helpful for business owners and sales reps. And LinkedIn, I love connecting with new people. So if they want to look for me on LinkedIn, I'm always happy to get invites to connect.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Thank you for joining me in on this episode of Your Lab Central. To the audience, if you like the episode, do leave a like. If you have a question or you have anything that you related to, do leave a comment and let us know. And don't forget to subscribe before closing the video. Thank you for joining in. Thank you, Ruth, for
Thank
joining
you.
for the
Thanks.
episode.